This video is going to be a lot more interesting than you expected because I'm going to tell you the surprising story behind the most overused tape ever made, starting with a "you've been doing this all wrong" type bombshell that is actually true. If you've been calling this stuff duct tape with a T, you've been saying it wrong your whole life. Believe it or not, this stuff is properly called duct tape with a K. I'm not kidding. That is what it was originally called when it was first developed for sealing ammunition boxes of all uses during World War II. The idea was that a waterproof tape might seal better and perhaps even be quicker to tear open so you could get your ammo out before you got blown up. The War Department passed the idea to Johnson & Johnson, and they developed a tape made from a specially woven canvas cloth called duck with a K. Duck is a Dutch word that is spelled D-O-E-K and pronounced more like dauk. But in English, we use the word duck not just for our waterfowl, but it's also what we called a cotton canvas cloth that could be made waterproof by coating it in wax or rubber. Before World War II, it was already widely used to make things like tents and tarps and clothing. And duck fabric is still used today for things like my apron, which is special. If you want to know why, look at the video description below. Bottom line, duck fabric was determined to be the perfect cloth for the waterproof tape that the military was looking for. As I said, Johnson & Johnson developed the new duck tape, but they didn't actually invent it. The term was also used as far back as 1900 to refer to strips of coated duck cloth that were used for things like repairing shoes and wrapping steel cable to prevent corrosion. But the earliest versions didn't have an adhesive on it, so we may not consider that tape in the strictest sense as we know it today. But by 1910, there were some adhesive-backed cloth tapes on the market. However, the real miracle tape of that era was the clear stuff that became known as Scotch tape. It was Scotch tape, not duct tape, that the Depression-era households thought was a miracle for fixing everything. It wasn't until World War II that adhesive-coated cloth duct tape really went mainstream. People liked it because it was waterproof and it was tough, but it could still be ripped apart with your fingers instead of cutting it with scissors. The military used it for everything, including repairing vehicles and weapons. There are stories of its use to repair things like helicopter blades. It was even used as a battle dressing. GIs fell in love with their duct tape, and when they returned home, they clamored for more. So naturally, a retail version hit the hardware stores and duct tape craze was born. In those days, it wasn't the common gray we have today. It was originally only available in military green. But in the post-war world, folks found among its many uses was sealing metal ductwork. And by the 1950s, it had a new silver color to match the steel ducts, and folks started calling it duct tape with a T. This mispronunciation quickly became so synonymous with the stuff that everyone forgot that it was actually called duct tape. In fact, by the 1970s, a guy named Jack Call was able to trademark the largely forgotten original name, and duct tape became a brand of duct tape. If there was one thing, though, that really put duct tape on the map, it was the Apollo 13 crisis of 1970. Things were looking pretty bleak for the 3 crew members of the craft until they used a roll of duct tape to convert an air filter and get themselves home safely. Duct tape suddenly became as popular as Tang. The thing is, duct tape is a lot better at taping ducts than it is for ducts. Studies have shown it quickly degrades on ductwork. It's pretty flammable, and when it smolders, it lets off noxious gases, so many building codes prohibit its use for ductwork. That's right, you shouldn't use duct tape on actual ducts. What can you use it for? Pretty much anything else. Because duct tape has become so much a part of popular culture that folks proudly use it in even the most inappropriate ways. As the saying goes, if it should move, cover it with WD-40. If it shouldn't move, cover it with duct tape. But the real question is, if you shouldn't use it on ductwork, should we go back to calling it duct tape with a K? Maybe, but then you'd have to explain the story to everybody that calls you an idiot. So instead, check this out. Some folks are a pleasure to work with, like Ken Rizzo over at woodturnerswonders.com. That's where I get my turning stuff, like sanding supplies and CBN wheels for my grinder. Seriously, if you haven't seen what CBN wheels can do for you, you are missing out. I'll put a link below this video. Use it and tell Ken I sent you.